Hi, this is my new bike. Hi folks, welcome back to the channel, and if you watched my recent review of the Faro Smart Helmet, you'll know that I've recently entered the realm of e-bikes, and the Cowboy 4 is a stealthy little beauty. Now I can promise you, this video is not going to be getting into all the geeky little specifications of this bike. If you're interested in those, check the link in the description. What we will be doing is looking at what kind of owner this bike is targeted at, what you get in the box, what it's like to set up and ride, and then my honest thoughts after just over 100 miles ridden and 1 month of ownership. Let's get into it. Now, if you're watching this video, chances are, like me, you probably shortlisted this bike as one you might be interested in buying. Now, as you can see from these photos, I was super into biking as a kid, and actually the last time I owned a bike was in my late teens. And these days, I live in one of the most bike-friendly cities in the country. It's amazing, really, it's taken me this long to get myself a bike, but I was really excited to get back into my love of cycling. And it's incredible to see how far things have come since I last owned a bike, both in terms of features, but also in terms of how much you can spend on a bike these days. So I started with my own wish list, which is relatively short, but really helped me narrow down my options. Now, number one, I wanted something that was low or no maintenance. I don't know what I'm doing when it comes to looking after a bike, so I didn't really want to knowingly spend some money buying a bike that was going to be spending its time in the service shop getting repaired and maintained. And then number two, I wanted to do some exercise whilst I was riding. I am inherently quite a lazy person, so I didn't want anything that would give me the option to just press a button and allow me to coast along without putting any effort in. There are loads of e-bikes around that are essentially mopeds with pedals attached, and that's not what I wanted. Number three, I wanted something that had a removable battery, so whilst I'm lucky enough to have an outside space that I can store my bike in, the outside space hasn't got power to it, so I didn't really want to be carting my entire bike inside the house every time it needed charging. And number four, I had a top budget of £3,000 to spend. So after filtering this wish list through what was available, Cowboy was one of those brands that I kept coming back to. Now, if you haven't heard from them before, they are headquartered in Belgium, but they have sites all over Europe, including Paris and Berlin. And from what I could read on reviews and websites, the Cowboy 4 seemed to tick all the boxes on my wish list. And I had an absolutely glowing recommendation from a pal of mine whose opinion I really value, and that was good enough for me to place my order. And yes, I know what you're thinking, I did all of this without test riding the bike. Now, as it happens, if you're based in or around London in the UK, it's actually really easy to book a test ride. They'll actually come to you, but not where I am here in the north of England. However, I did spot that the company offer a 14-day return policy, so I thought that was enough time for me to decide whether the bike was for me or not. So delivery was pretty straightforward. The website said 10 days and it came in 8. One thing that surprised me was that the entire order came in super heavy duty, but entirely recyclable packaging, which was awesome. Now you get a handy little box full of accessories and instructions to follow, and some of these accessories like the little extra lights are mandatory in some European countries but not here in the UK, but it's nice that they've included everything as standard here. And then once everything was unboxed, let's have a quick look at the bike. Now I went for the black finish, and as we can see here, it's a really nice matte black effect. It's still a bit dusty from being in transit. So let's see what needs doing for setting up this bike, and it's really just a handful of things. First of all, you'll need to straighten the handlebars and tighten everything up. Next, you'll need to adjust the brakes so they're pointing in the right direction and are in a good position for where your hands will be. Next up, we're going to fix the pedals on, and of course with all these you have a dedicated tool which comes labelled in the box. It really couldn't be clearer. So we're almost there. The next step is to adjust the saddle, which you can do by removing the battery, and to do that you get a custom key. Quite a nice little feature this. It means that it's really difficult to steal your saddle, as they'll need the battery key in order to get to the fixings to remove it. So that's the bike all built and ready to go. It took me about 15-20 minutes, really easy. Now the last thing we need to do is to activate the bike, which you can do via the QR code that's on the little red label attached to the handlebars. Now it'll connect your phone to the bike via Bluetooth and then download and push on a firmware update to the bike, and it'll let you know when you're good to go. Now more on the app in just a tick. And that's pretty much it. The only thing we need to do is charge the battery up and then we're off. And charging up this big 2.5 kilogram battery takes 3.5 hours from empty to full. So let's move on to looking at what this bike is like to ride and own. And I know I said we weren't going to do stats, but let's get a few of the big ones out of the way. Weight. This is a pretty heavy bike with the battery fitted and the mudguards. These come as standard, by the way. You're starting in at 18.9 kilograms. Now, it'll be a bit more with my setup here, which includes the kickstand and the rear rack. Let's call it 20 kilograms in all. Now, if you ever ride this bike without the assistance turned on, you will feel that weight. And if you're planning on taking it off road, or if you're planning on, lifting it upstairs to an apartment, you definitely will want to be aware that this is a heavy bike. Now, as for that battery, it's a 10 amp, 360 watt hour battery, which the manufacturers claim will get you 70 kilometers or about 43 miles of range out of a single charge. And in my testing, I found that was pretty much spot on. And whilst you can buy extra batteries and carry them around with you, I think the general idea with this bike is that it is designed as a commuter bike, which will get you in a nice, speedy way from A to B, and then you bring it home every night and charge it as you need to. Another clue as to who this bike is for is in the tyres. These are 47mm custom designed puncture resistant tyres with a flexible grip. So I've been out riding in the rain with these and I had no issues sticking to roads or footpaths. You could even think about taking it off-road, but I probably wouldn't be throwing this around a forest anytime soon. This is without a doubt a commuter e-bike. So what's it like to ride? Well, it's probably worth starting with what most rides with this bike start with, which is the companion app, and it is great. So they describe this as the Cockpit because with the integrated quad lock mount on the handlebars, you can just sit this up here and let the app become part of your ride. Oh, and it's got wireless charging, which is a really neat feature, and it's only going to sit at your bike's battery. So Cowboy say it'll only use 5% of battery for every hour that your phone is charging on your bike. And as we can see here, you can program in your home and work destinations and let the bike map you a route. You'll also spot we get some weather notifications, and if we tap here, we get some other information such as battery life and distance remaining, air quality, as well as some information on our last ride. Elsewhere for you data geeks, you can track your weekly, monthly or annual ride stats and join groups to compete with other Cowboy riders in or around your location. So in the settings section, you get an overview of the bike, and you can also integrate the data captured by the app into popular services such as Apple Health and Strava, so you don't need to worry about keeping track of your journeys in multiple places. Really nice this. And you can also set up Siri shortcuts to do things like lock and unlock your bike with a voice command. So if we scroll down here, we can also see some of the safety and security settings. There's an auto lock feature which you can customize, and that works a bit like Tesla's unlocking. It uses your Bluetooth signal in a paired phone. Bike will automatically lock itself when your phone is out of range. More on this locking feature later. We can see here we also have crash detection, and that will automatically alert your emergency contacts within 60 seconds if your bike detects that it's been in a crash. So this is similar to some of the AI in the latest iPhones, but as the Cowboy app uses the hardware in the bike, you'd imagine this will be even more accurate. Just one of those things that you hope you'll never need, but it is really good to have. Finally, we can see Cowboy offer a couple of monthly subscriptions, neither of which I've gone with. These include theft insurance, which is £10 per month, and also Cowboy Care, which is an on-demand unlimited maintenance service, and that's £20 per month. So that's the app. Let's fire up the sat nav and plan out a route. So before we set off, let's give it up for the integration here. The brake cables, the battery, the lights, even the way the phone mounts and charges is all designed to fit seamlessly into the frame of this bike, and as a result it cuts a really sleek and stealthy look when you're riding about. I've actually had a bunch of people come up and ask me about the bike just out of the blue, and that's all about the looks. It doesn't look like a typical e-bike, and it doesn't look like a typical bike. It's a bold, minimalist design choice, and I think it looks super smart. So in terms of the motorized assistance, this is Cowboy's own design, which gives 45 Newton meters of torque from a 250 watt motor, and that motor will easily get you to a decent speed. In the UK and most of Europe, all e-bikes are capped at 15.5 miles an hour or 25 kilometers an hour, so you'll need to be traveling down a hill to go past this speed, but the motor itself can deliver a theoretical top speed of 30 miles an hour. And if you're based in the US, you lucky devils can access this top speed totally uncapped and unrestricted. And that motor delivers power via this Gates carbon belt transmission. Now the cool thing about this is that there's no messy chain or gears to worry about here. If it ever slips off, you just pop it back on and you're good to go again. And on the same note, if you need to bring the bike to a stop, you've got front and rear hydraulic disc brakes which are super efficient. All very little fuss, and all of this definitely ticks my maintenance free or certainly maintenance light wish list box. Now, unlike some other e-bikes, you don't specify what levels of assist you want in the app or on the bike. It's either on or off, and then it just does it for you. It's quite difficult to describe how this works other than it feels really natural. It's almost organic, like an extension of you as the rider. You are definitely responsible for pushing the pedals along. You have to work for it, but the harder you work, the more you are rewarded with assistance from that motor. So I actually asked the technical team at Cowboy about this, and they say that the bike uses a power curve based on the torque sensors in the pedals and the speed sensors in the wheels to decide how much power assistance to give at any given moment. It's a really fun, dynamic ride too. Speeding away at the lights never gets old, and the sat-nav generally plots out a clever route that is designed to minimise the time you spend on busy roads. So I've been living in the city for over 20 years, and I've been really enjoying all the little areas and shortcuts that I never knew existed, and that's all thanks to the navigation in the app. So security-wise, you might have spotted that the app talks about auto-unlocking or locking your bike. What does that actually mean? Well, in simple terms, it doesn't mean you can leave your bike anywhere unlocked and not expect it to be stolen. It also doesn't lock your wheels in place when you're away from your bike. And it doesn't automatically tell you if somebody walks away with your bike. If you want theft alerts, that's part of one of those subscriptions you'll have to sign up for. Although, interesting side note, if someone does succeed in stealing your bike and is able to remove the battery, there is a backup battery in the bike frame which will continually send GPS notifications and alerts to the owner, so you've got a pretty good chance of getting your bike back if it is stolen and you've got the theft insurance. All the lock and auto unlock does is it unlocks the motor for you to use as an e-bike. If anyone was trying to try and ride your bike off while it's in lock mode, it's not impossible, but it will render it as both a dumb and a very heavy lump of aluminium. So it's all pretty positive so far, right? You're probably wondering, are there any downsides to owning this bike that I've come across in the 1 month of ownership? And I'll be honest here, I'm gonna pick 3 niggles that I've had so far. First off, that paintwork. Now, it's entirely understandable that a bike's paintwork is not gonna stay pristine forever, but within a week, I've managed to scratch it up pretty badly on the handlebars. Check this out. And likewise, I brought this pannier bag from Thule to go on the rear rack. This was actually recommended by Cowboy in their accessories section on the website, and as you can see, this has started to wear off the paintwork on the rack. Now, to be fair to Cowboy, their customer service has been really great around this. I reached out to them via the app, and without any questions asked, they sent me out a little pot of touch-up paint so that I could correct any of those scratches and make sure that it was looking as good as new. So while I really do like the matte black look, I'm wondering whether the khaki or the sand colours might have been a bit more forgiving when it comes to everyday scratches and scrapes. So next up, the ride is a little bit firm. So obviously there's no built-in suspension in the frame and forks like you find in more expensive commuter e-bikes, but this is definitely a commuter e-bike that is designed to be used on good quality roads. Now, unfortunately, we don't have lots of those here in the UK. The saddle is a Cell Royal comfort saddle, but I have found myself standing up to avoid any nasty jolts on some surfaces. So I might look to upgrade the seat post in the future video. So do subscribe if you want to see what accessories I would recommend using with this bike. Now, finally, I'm maybe a bit below 5'10" or like 175 centimeters. It's about average, isn't it? And my seat post is set on its lowest setting here, and it's exactly the right size for me to sit on. The website says the Cowboy 4 is for riders who are 170 centimeters through to 195 centimeters tall. If you're anywhere near that 170 centimeter level, I'd say go for the step-through ST model instead, which is much more suitable for riders who are a little bit shorter, from 165 to 190 centimeters. And just as an aside, as well as being step-through, the ST gives a much more comfortable upright cycling position versus the Cowboy 4, which is designed for a more forward-leaning, more dynamic ride. So if you've got any lower back issues, you might also want to consider the ST model too. So let's get into pricing. The Cowboy 4 came in under my budget at 2490 sterling delivered. So I went in and added the Essentials pack, and that includes a kickstand and a rear rack, which both arrived pre-fitted. To be honest, I think the kickstand is an absolute must given how heavy this bike is. So if you're going with any accessory, definitely go with that. Now, in the meantime, if you're thinking about buying one of these bikes and looking to support the channel, please follow the link in the description, and you can use that to buy anything in the Cowboy store. Now, I would say they are always running special offers on some of the other models, so if you don't have a high need to have the wireless charging for your phone or the neatness of that cable integration into the frame, there's some really good rates available on the Cowboy 3, which has pretty much all the other features that I've talked about in this video. Go check it out. So folks, that's my initial 1 month review of the Cowboy 4 e-bike, and as always, if you've got any questions, let me know in the comments below and I'll do my best to help. And if you're not in the market for a stylish European designed e-bike just now and you want to support the channel, do hit the like button. It really does help us out, and if you want to see more like this, maybe even a cheeky subscribe. I'll see you next time.